It is now my pleasure to introduce today's distinguished speaker, Dr. Jihan Qi. As he finishes to stir, sorry about that, sir. As the Vice President, I'll take a moment to introduce him. As the Vice President and General Manager of North America, Dr. Qi manages all aspects of Air China's business in North America from its headquarters in Los Angeles. I had an opportunity to chat with him today, and he's not only charming, but has a remarkable experience, and we're looking forward to hearing him share his experience, training, educational background that prepared him for the wealth challenges of his position as the head of Air China in North America. He worked in a number of increasingly responsible positions for Northwest Airlines from 1994 to 2003. He joined Air China in 2004 and has led the company's unprecedented growth and significant investments in and contributions to the California economy. Before he was promoted to Vice President and General Manager for North America in April 2008, Dr. Qi was General Manager of Western USA for 2 years until November 2006. Prior to this, he was responsible for Air China's Los Angeles office. Dr. Qi's unrelenting advocacy for visa liberalization for Chinese visitors has made him a familiar figure to senior members of the U.S. Congress, State Department, and U.S. Homeland Security, with whom he has personally met. He's fluent in English and Chinese. Dr. Qi's background makes him uniquely qualified to speak of China and U.S.-China relations. A naturalized U.S. citizen, Dr. Qi was born in China. He earned his doctorate and master's degree from the Sloan School of Management at MIT, and received his bachelor's degree and master's degree from Peking University in Beijing. Please give a warm LA5 welcome to Dr. Jihan Qi.
Thank you, President Jay, for that kind introduction. It really is an honor to address such a high-minded group. Honor and privilege. Let me say a few words about my name. Zhihan, the proper pronunciation, Simon will be able to tell you. In Chinese, is Zhihan. 2 characters. Now, what it means is, my aspiration is aviation. Why do I want to tell you that? Number one, I know my name sounds very strange. It sounds probably more strange than the names of the suspects in the Boston bombing. So now you know what it means. Secondly, anybody who wants to get involved in an industry that in 2002 generated a 0.8% profit margin. It's probably pretty dumb. Now, I want you to understand, I'm probably pretty dumb, but my fate was sealed at birth. So, please forgive me. I thought I'd begin by telling you a little bit about Air China, so that you understand me as a person a little better, and then understand Air China a little better, and then understand China a little better. So we're called Air China Limited, and that is our 777-300ER taking off. And this, by the way, is the airplane that I flew on to come to this country in February 1988. And that was a trip of 20 hours and 10 minutes. It took me from Beijing to Shanghai, Shanghai to San Francisco, San Francisco to JFK, overnighted in JFK, and got on a blue meatball. I don't know if the term sounds familiar at all, but it's a nickname from Pan Am because of their blue globe. So in our industry jargon, we call it blue meatball. Yes. So that's the airplane I came on. And as you can see from the next picture, it's not the same livery. Now this is our current livery. This is the 747. Oh, let me go back. This is the very famous 747 SP. a very functional, very well-performing airplane. Now, this is a big step ahead. This is a 747-400, which we operated until about a month or two ago. This is a picture that we took when we added our second daily flight to LA on September 1st of 2011. And we're getting a water cannon salute from the airport and the city. The mayor was on hand, the Chinese ambassador was on hand, and a whole bunch of other dignitaries. Now, this is my beautiful 777-200ER taking off from LAX, as you can see here, back on that avant-garde building. So, a little bit about our evolution. Way back when I came to this country, the reason I wanted to show you the picture, the first picture was, it was called CAAC at that time. What it stands for is Civil Aviation Administration of China. It was pretty much a government agency providing transportation for the people. Go figure. And by the way, we used to joke that CAAC really stood for Chinese airline always cancel. And up until 2004, we used to be called Air China International Corporation. We used to operate all the international routes for the country of China, so that's how we got our name. Then, in 2004, December 2004, we became a publicly traded company where our stock is listed in Hong Kong, London, and New York on an ADR basis. So today we're a full-blood, publicly traded company competing with the likes of United Airlines, American Airlines, Delta, Cathay, Singapore, you name it. And this is our Chinese name, which is a big deal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 Chinese characters. Now, why is that a big deal? Because this was handwritten by Mr. Deng Xiaoping. And that gentleman, I'm sure most of you are familiar with his name. He's responsible for where China is today, the opening up the reform. And he wrote names for only 2 companies in his entire life. One of them is Air China. The other one you don't even bother. You shouldn't even bother to know. And on the left, there's our logo. It is a bright red phoenix. Phoenix is an imaginary creature that portends good fortune and happiness. And the color, by the way, is bright red. It has absolutely nothing to do with any ism. It is a good, great, traditional Chinese color. Now, the amusing thing about this logo is that it is actually an artistic rendering of 3 English letters, VIP. So if you watch carefully, it's VIP. So we want to treat our customers royally. Now, I want to show the flag, not to say that we're politically advantaged or connected, but to say this is actually a big branding tool for us, because, of course, it's also a reflection of our status. Now, in the United States, every U.S. carrier, by law, needs to have the U.S. flag painted on the fuselage. So that's a legal requirement. In China, it's the total opposite. Only one guy has the privilege to have the Chinese flag painted on the fuselage, and that's us. And why? Because we're very, very safe. We have an immaculate operating record and great service. So that's our privilege. In 2008, for the first time in Olympic history, the games were held in China, and we were the airline partner. And just to give you an idea what it looks like to be on board an airplane, this is our first class seat. Pretty comfortable, I would say. And this is our business class seat. What it does not show is these seats actually are completely lie flat seats. So they become horizontally flat, 100 degrees. This is the kind of attitude or service you will get on board. They're friendly people, they're professionally trained, they're courteous, eager to serve. It's never a crime to ask for anything. Now, we are a Star Alliance carrier. Now, what does that mean? That means if you're a United Airlines Mileage Plus member, when you fly on Air China, you get your whole 9 yards, you know, the mileage, the status, and whatnot. So that's a big deal for us. Just very quickly, 2002, we have 69 airplanes. Today, we have about 432 airplanes. We're having 19 Boeing 777-300ERs being delivered. The list price, sticker price for each is about $325 million. And then also, 15 Dreamliners on order, if they ever get fixed and built. Also 5 747-8. By the way, I have some great friends at Boeing, and I say that to them in their face. So. Now, 5 Boeing 747-8 Intercontinentals on order. As you can see, we have a very young fleet, 6.65 years. That's an extremely young fleet age. So that's part of the reasons why we are very safe. But we're very profitable. We made $750 million in 2002. We're probably, I want to say, the most profitable air carrier in 2002. And now we are a Skytrax 4-star rating. Now, Skytrax is an organization that tracks and rates all carriers in the world. I don't think there is a U.S. carrier that is a 4-star carrier, but we are one of the few. And then we're in this, merger and acquisition game as well. We have a cross-ownership relationship with Cathay Pacific. In fact, we own 30% of Cathay Pacific. That, by the way, is an good airline based in, that's a very good airline based in Hong Kong. And this is my home in the United States. This is our headquarter building located in El Segundo, which we bought for $5 million outright a couple years ago. So that's a 101 on Air China. Now, why do I want to mention Air China? Just to give you an idea where Air China's path pretty much has been the path of China. We're fast developing, and we're trying to get more connected and more involved with the world. It has been said, widely said, and widely recognized that the most important bilateral relationship in this world for the next century to come is that between the United States and China. Obviously, it's a very lofty and big statement, probably hard to, corroborate. I thought what I would do today as a stakeholder and a practitioner, share some common stories, share some simple stories, and to show you to share my thoughts about this very important relationship. I'm going to tell you some stories. 2011, if you remember about 2 years ago, there was some heavy flooding on the Mississippi. In fact, for a period of time, the river was closed to barge traffic. Now, why do I mention that? Well, I mention that because China was very, very worried. Why is China worried? Oh, because China, frankly, has become the largest importer of U.S. agriculture products. In other words, last year China's import of the U.S. agricultural products was about $30 billion, about 20% of total U.S. agricultural exports. A lot of it was grain, a lot of it was floating out the Mississippi River down to New Orleans to be loading out barges or ships back to China, ocean-going ships going to China. So China was very, very concerned. I don't think anybody knew that. And then, that same year in May, there was an explosion at a factory called Foxconn in China. Now, maybe a few people were injured, maybe even one person was killed, unfortunately. But nobody paid any attention here, the general public in the United States. But one company really was hurting, and that was Apple. Because because of the explosion, the factories were all shut down, but that factory and its other factories made all the iPhones in the world for Apple. So that gives you an idea how much we are interconnected. And then, I read a report which really cracked me up yesterday. Peanuts, nuts report. So much so I sent a note to Richard Anderson, my good friend who at Delta Airlines, by the way, he is the CEO of Delta Airlines, but he used to be my boss at Northwest. These folks, there's a little town called Albany in Georgia. These days, it's overwhelmed by an influx of Chinese people. What are they doing there? They're peanut buyers. They're here to buy peanuts. And China this year will account for 50% of United States peanut exports. Now, Albany, if you don't know where it is, it's in Georgia, about 180 miles south of Atlanta. Now, the only thing about Albany is that Ray Charles was born there. But it is a big peanut town. And so folks are going there and they're picking up peanuts like there's no tomorrow. And in fact, the peanut price dropped from $1.50 per pound last year to 46 cents this year. Had it not been for the Chinese buyers, it would have been a free fall. So I sent a note to Richard, my good friend. I said, I hope they flew on Delta to Atlanta. And as an added benefit, you probably should set them up for a meeting with the world's most famous peanut farmer. That would be an added benefit of flying on Delta. Jimmy Carter. And so, all of us have heard of Time Magazine, right? Time Magazine's founder was Henry Luce. Now, Henry Luce was born in China. He was born in a town in Shandong province called, back then it was called Tangchao. Now it's called Panglai. Very famous. So he was born there. Now, his Time Magazine publishes or names Man of the Year. Guess what? 5 ethnic Chinese got on the list. Only 2 Americans. And closer to home, Bill Allen. I'm sure you've heard of it. Now, Bill Allen, his mother, was born in China. He's 91 years old. His mother was born in a town called Wuhan, which is a big city in China. Now, Bill just took a trip to China. Of course, he always flies on. You know each other, right? The U.S. and China are united in tragedy. On 9/11, 4 Chinese nationals died on that airplane, or on one of the airplanes. And just on Monday, in Boston, of the 3 people killed, one was a Chinese national, a young lady. So I hope I was able to show you that there are all these links that we're aware of or unaware of between the United States and China. So we're intricately interconnected. Now some big numbers or big statements. The U.S. is the world's sole superpower, and China is the fastest growing developing country. And the 2 countries are number 1 and number 2 economies, and China is faster. approaching. And, I did forget to mention that the Chinese and Americans actually get along very, very well. Very, very well. We all value family, we all value education, we all value achievement, we all pursue efficiency, we all pursue excellence, and we all love having a great time with our friends and family. Americans and Chinese can always get together for a drink or for a meal. Always. Now, if you look really, really far back, the U.S. actually is the U.S. has never ever fought a declared war with China. Never. And in fact, the U.S. and China fought together side by side, mostly in World War II against Japan. And the U.S. is probably the only major Western power who never ever dominated China. There is no U.S. American colony, there's no American concession. On the contrary, China many years ago viewed the U.S. as a protector. Now there was a very famous rebellion in China called Boxer Rebellion, for those of you who have read anything about Chinese history. China was crushed, lost. And as a result, China paid huge sums of compensation to Western powers. The U.S. got its share, but the U.S. didn't use it for its selfish purposes. It brought students to come to the United States to attend colleges and universities. And they built a very famous university in China, Tsinghua University, which is China's MIT. Now, I don't like that because I went to Peking University in China, which is pretty much China's Harvard. You get that? So there are all these, links between U.S. and China. If you look at our trade numbers today, our two-way trade is more than $500 billion. It's $536 billion. The U.S. is China's biggest trading partner, and China is the U.S.'s second biggest trading partner after our neighbor to the north, Canada. And there are about 200,000 Chinese students studying in this country. In terms of investment, China invested $5.8 billion in 2010, and in 2012 it invested about $6.5 billion. Still a very small number, but the trajectory is very, very promising. And also the U.S. and China have a lot in common when it comes to strategic interests on the issue of the Korean Peninsula, on anti-terrorism, on climate change, on nuclear proliferation, on global peacekeeping. Of course, these are two very different countries, very different historical background, cultural system, and value system. So we disagree. And sometimes they get a little noisy, a little contentious. So the issues such as human rights, currency manipulation, trade imbalance, IP rights, Taiwan issue. Somebody dared to tell me that they dared to mention the term the other China. I'm kidding, actually it was Tuan. And that is probably the hottest button in the U.S.-China relationship. And then Tibet was an issue. Now Senkaku is becoming an issue. But as you can see, many of these don't seem to be direct issues between China and the United States. So we don't seem to have a direct conflict. As I said, we've never fought a declared war. So those are some of the issues in the U.S.-China relationship. And obviously, China's fast rise creates some unease on the part of the world, and especially the United States. It was the sole leader. Now it's probably being, I wouldn't say challenged, but being pursued by China. And of course, the U.S., China is feeling uneasy about the U.S. as well, because it feels that U.S. has been trying to contain it, trying to hold it down. And it's probably not a good term to use, but a certain measure of jealousy. And that's the perspective on the Chinese side. But if you think about it, China's rise is inevitable. The growth of China, the development of China, is not a mystery at all. It's a huge country of 1.3 billion people. More and more people went to work, and they were hungry, not necessarily literally, but they were hungry for a better life, for success. So they were very driven, very entrepreneurial, and so as a result of that, China just rises. So there is nothing mysterious, nothing untoward, nothing ulterior. There is not any manipulation anywhere by the government or of that sort. It's just basically people trying to have a better life. So that propels China's growth. And so with all these issues between the United States, I think we have to realize that I titled my remarks "Partnership of Inevitability," because we cannot avoid each other. We have to work together with one another. There are bound to be disagreements. There are bound to be differences. There are bound to be debates. There are bound to be arguments. But the key thing for us to do is to work together. To that end, I have always advocated the feet on the ground approach. Now, by feet on the ground, there are three meanings. The first sense, the figurative sense, is that we got to be practical. Let's focus on areas where we can agree, and let's try to minimize the impact of our differences. The single most area where we can agree on is to build economic ties, is to bring more investment back and forth, to have more trade, for U.S. to sell more to China, and for China to import more U.S. know-how to build up a consumer society to consume more of its products internally rather than exporting to the United States, or for that matter, the world. And there is also a literal sense of feet on the ground. That is, we have to have more visitors to the United States, or for more U.S. Americans to go to China. Now, there was a huge obstacle up until maybe a year or two ago, and that's why in Jay's introduction he mentioned my unrelenting effort to push for visa reform. And I got a heartwarming note from a colleague this morning who works at Washington Dulles Airport, and he said, "You must be pleased that all of your hard efforts finally moved the U.S. government to improve the visa problems. You were a very persuasive voice in that argument." Now, in 2010, 800,000 people or visitors came from China to the United States. That same year, 1.1 million Koreans came to this country. 3.5 million Japanese came to this country. ladies and gentlemen, China's population is 27 times of Korea's population and 10 times of Japan's population. And you may or may not know that the Chinese visitor happens to be the biggest spender when they come to the United States. They spend more than any other international visitor. On average, they spend more than $6,000 per person per child. So we thought that was a big problem, that we couldn't get more Chinese visitors to come and visit this country. So we went to work, and now I'm very pleased to report that the problem has been significantly mitigated. It used to be that to get a personal interview, by the way, after 9/11, our Congress passed a law that requires that every single visa applicant be interviewed in person by an officer. So it used to be that folks would need to wait for more than 100 days just to get an interview. Now, with the great efforts on the ground, especially by Gary Locke, our ambassador to China, that wait time has been reduced to about 2 days or 3 days. So as a result, we saw a 40% jump of travelers to the United States from China, tourist spending from China. 2010, it was $5.0 billion. 2012, it's about 2010, $5.0 billion. 2011, $7.7 billion. 2012, the final numbers are not out, but I strongly suspect it is going to be north of 10 billion. Now, the U.S. export, so tourist spending is accounted for as export. The U.S. export to China last year was $110 million, so that's almost 10%. And sky's the limit. And I'm happy to report that for the first 11 months of 2012, 1.4 million Chinese visited the United States. For the first time in history, more Chinese came to visit this country than the Koreans. So that's a major milestone. However, I do need to remind you, again, China's population is 27 times Korea's population. China's population is 10 times of Japan's population. So that is the literal sense of feet on the ground, because you really need to have people, civic engagement, because nothing promotes understanding, build friendship better than face-to-face interaction. Seeing is believing, as we want to know. The final sense of feet on the ground is that as more Chinese come to this country, as more Chinese companies like ours, like mine, come to this country, we need to build relevance. In other words, what we do here, obviously, we're seeing a measure of success. When I joined Air China, we operated 16 weekly flights to the United States. And right now, we operate about 40 to 45 flights a week. So more than double. I mean, we see a lot of it is more Chinese companies here, more tourists are here. But when we are here, when we invest in this country, we need to build relevance. We need to educate the general public, and we want the public to, we want to give a good answer to the general public's question, what's in it for me, for the Chinese to be here. So we need to go out and create some positive awareness. We need to be engaged with the community. And Air China has supported educational efforts, educational institutions. We we supported, if you happen to have been to the Huntington, the construction of the Chinese garden was partially sponsored by Air China, in that we flew in gratis all the artisans from China for them to construct the Chinese garden. And we also support museums, Arts Museum, and I'm standing here speaking to a charitable group like yours. So those are all the efforts, and many other efforts, to get us more involved, to make us more relevant. With that, I conclude my remarks.
Are you willing to take a few questions? We have about 4 or 5 minutes, so time for some questions.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your presentation. I have 2 questions that I can ask both. I married my Chinese-born wife about 36 years ago, and had 2 daughters. Took them to China when they were teenagers. We traveled to Guangzhou, Beijing, Guilin, Xi'an, and my...
All Air China, of course.
I'm not sure if it was back in 1993, so I have to go back again. And my in-laws, father-in-law was born in Beijing, and mother-in-law born in Shanghai. So the 2 questions are, one relates to their situation. They were in China and left after the Communist Party took over the Chinese government. They had property in Beijing and Shanghai. So maybe you could address what is being done for former Chinese citizens and nationals who had assets in China and their recourse. That's the first question. Secondly, you said we have a lot of common interests in the U.S. and China, and we do. Certainly trade, economic. You said terrorism was a common goal, anti-proliferation. A lot of people in the U.S., though, would say that China maybe is not doing enough as far as controlling North Korea, and that they seem to be a bully terrorist nation. And we all know that China controls North Korea. If they were really serious about that, why isn't China doing more?
Well, the first question I don't have an answer, so I'm going to skip that. The second question, I personally believe, I'm not involved in any of those discussions, but I'm personally convinced that China is extremely upset with North Korea. I don't know. I frankly don't know how much China can do when you have a naughty boy who is willing to go to the rink and call it a bluff. There's only so much that China can do. Now, if China wants to cut off aid, fine. Then there's going to be a deluge of refugees crossing the border into China. Is China ready to take them? So there are all these questions that I am absolutely certain that China wants to help, and it's not in China's interest to have a nuclear race at its doorsteps. If North Korea goes nuclear, South Korea will, Japan probably will. That's absolutely not in China's interest. Right?
Just a minute, Doug. Doug, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce. I didn't see you. Go ahead.
In your opinion, what is the biggest misconception that we Americans have of China?
Wow, biggest.
Just one.
I think Americans really need to go to China, and I think once you're there, you will understand many of the challenges that are there on the ground. For example, I took a religious friend. He's in Mormon, and he actually was a missionary in Hong Kong for many years. But during that time, he had never been to China, So I took him to Beijing. We went to Tiananmen Square. He was totally overwhelmed. And he said, wow, there are these many people. Now let me imagine, how do you run a democracy? How do you even run a vote? How do you count all the votes? How do you distribute all the ballots? Those are some of the very real questions. And one of the perceptions here is that people there have no freedom. People there are miserable. But when you take a perspective, historical perspective, things couldn't be more different in China than what it was like when I was a kid in China. I wouldn't say you have total freedom, but as long as you don't take to the streets, sometimes you can even take to the streets, but as long as you don't cross certain lines, you can do a whole lot more than people here are willing to believe.
Doug?
Just recently, my wife and I sold our home in Pasadena, and it's got us to talk to a whole lot of realtors. And one of the rumors that's going around is that many of the homes that are being bought in our area are being bought by Chinese. And that it's not their money, but in fact it is the government's money, and that they have been approved as official buyers. So, and I not just heard it from the realtors, I heard it from my barber, who's saying, well, my barber. I've been here for 50 years in San Gabriel and Alhambra and Pasadena, and he told me the same thing. So I'm hearing these two bits of information. I don't know if they're true or not, but first, is there truth to this? And if so, what is the intent of the Chinese government in buying up a lot of residential properties in Southern California?
Frankly, it's the first time I've ever heard the government is involved in picking up real estate here. But I am familiar with rich people in China coming here, picking up a $0.5 million home in the neighborhood of UCLA and St. Lawrence, aren't you? And I am frankly not aware of any government involvement at all. These are all very wealthy individuals, and they are wealthy. Now, some of the wealthiest people are a group that we will never think of. They are mine owners. They're mine owners. They smell of coal, and their collars are probably black, but they have tons and tons of cash, and they carry a briefcase with nothing but cash in it and say, well, this is the house I'm buying right now. And so that's what they did in China. I mean, they're doing it. They're probably doing it here again in the United States. Mostly, I think in this area, one is Beverly Hills, one is Calabasas. But as far as I know, those are all wealthy individuals.
All right. I think we're out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you for Dr. Jihan Chi. Your presentation was most informative and very compelling. It was an honor to have you with us today. And in honor of your presentation, we'd like to present this certificate of appreciation. We are donating $1,000. Has been made in your name to the LA5's Scholarship Fund. And we are just about to, in the next few weeks, we'll be holding our Scholarship Day in which we will give these scholarships to needy LA Unified students. So I'd like to present you with the Certificate of Appreciation, and thank you for your presentation. Thank you very much.